Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be catching up on some of my full deck challenge cards. If you are unfamiliar with what that is, I would suggest checking out Shana at Shanuki Art. This is basically an altered playing card challenge. I am not using playing cards for mine. I'm actually using old Project Life cards because I have a ton of them and I want to use them up. So we talk a lot about our carryover and our constant items in these challenges. And so the carryover item for me is actually this ledger paper. And my constant through all of these cards is a word. And I use that word as a tie-in to my Word Study Wednesday videos. So I've done all these Word Study Wednesday videos, but I haven't come back and taken time to do the art part. So that's what I'm going to try to get caught up here. So I'm actually going to be doing 4 cards today. So this first one is for week 26. So you guys, I'm way behind. Like I said, my carryover item is this ledger paper, and I had this one that had some ink and stuff on it, and it was perfect with this card, and I just really loved how all of the colors were working together. And so I'm just going to create like a little mini collage here in the background with this ledger paper. I'm trying to save certain parts of this because I want to save those colors, and I'm trying to pull in the colors that I am really enjoying. And so the prompt for this week was wrap. So I'm doing this in a couple different ways. The first is I'm wrapping some of those papers around to the back side, which is, maybe just barely covering the prompt, but it works for me. So you can see I just have a couple areas that I have wrapped around to the back, and I will write out my scripture for this week on the back of these cards. So that's why I have chosen Project Life cards. And sometimes I will add a piece of coffee dyed paper or something if I need to on the back, just so I have a good space to write. Now I'm just trimming everything down here, and now I want to add my sort of focal point, and I had this card. This has been in my stash on my desk forever, like years, literally, because I just think it's so cute and I just liked looking at it. And so I thought this would be a good time to put it on one of these cards so it has a new life and I can enjoy it. So I glued that down, and now I'm going to do some more with this prompt for wrapped. I'm pulling in some baker's twine that kind of pulls in that magenta color that's in the background of the card and also in the lines of the ledger paper. And so I'm just wrapping this, vertically around. I'm not even being very particular about the back. I'm just going to use some washi tape to tape this down. Certainly you could, use proper tape or whatever, but I think the washi will be fine. If I need to come back in, I can always tape it, and especially if I'm going to add like some coffee dyed paper on the back, it will be fine. And then I thought it would be really fun to just go ahead and do another section. So I'm now doing one that's horizontal, so they kind of look like they're intersecting. And because just to really emphasize that little card and also pull in this other color, which is a really unique color palette. It's not something I would normally gravitate toward, but I really loved this little card. And that's one of the things I liked about it. So I also tied a little tiny bow out of that same baker's twine. I'm just going to hold that down with my glue bottle there until that dries. And then I will add my word for this week, which is from a study in Acts 2:28. And so that word was full, and I have that on a Dymo label maker, and that is my constant. So you'll see a word like that every single week for my full deck challenge. So this is now week 27, and the prompt for this was numbers. And so my carryover item is actually going to be that same color palette, that green and that pink and that blue. And so I had this card that was, multicolored, and I had this piece of vintage paper. This is just a list of numbers. It's from like an algorithm from years and years ago, and I thought it would be really fun. And so these are like mathematical computations, and so I just added that. I did leave just a little bit on the left side so you can see some of that color peeking through, because again, that is my carryover item. I'm going to put this in a couple places. In hindsight, I wish I would have put it in 3, but I only did 2, but it will work out. This card ends up quite quirky, which is fine, but sometimes it's just fun to, spend 10 or 15 minutes creating. This is not, these are not major works of art that I'm doing. It's just a lot of collage, and it's actually a really good way if you want practice in collaging or creating clusters and focal points and that kind of stuff. Something like this, it's like a really low pressure kind of art, really small, not a lot of area to cover, it's sometimes really helpful to just kind of help you practice that skill. And so I challenged myself a little bit here because the prompt for this week was numbers. And so I thought it would be really fun to collage just a bunch of numbers. So I pulled out a bunch of Tim Holtz ephemera pieces that had a bunch of numbers. And originally I was going to use this 2 and 7 because this is week 27 on my card. I just didn't realize how large they were. So they were just covering up everything that I had already done in the background. And so I wanted to find something else. So I pulled out these other 2 very large Tim Holtz numbers, but I like that you can see the background better through these because there's just more open space. And so it's strange and it's quirky and whatever, it worked for me for this card. So I'm just going to glue these down as well. And then my constant, my word for this week is going to be comfort. This one comes from 2 Corinthians 1:3. And again, these all associate back to my Word Study Wednesday videos, but I'm just going to glue that down. And then I need to add my word, which I played around with putting it on the 7, but in the end, I just kind of hung it out there with in the numbers. So, and then the prompt for week 28 is black. And so what I decided to do was I pulled in, again, this is kind of one of those things like you're supposed to have a collage. I'm kind of making my whole card a collage. And so that's sort of what I'm going to do. And so what I decided as my carryover item, which is maybe on the border of cheating, is I'm pulling in some Tim Holtz pieces. So this is some Tim Holtz ephemera that I'm going to be adding. I had this black and white frame in my stash again for years, just trying to use up all the things. And this is a great project to do that, use up little leftover bits and pieces of things because it's just such a small project that you're working on. But I really wanted to kind of emphasize this, and so I have this frame, and then I had this little heart. It already came with the foam dot on the back of it. I just it's really old, and so I wasn't sure that foam dot was going to hold, so I did add a little bit of glue. And then behind this heart now I'm going to glue down some of these Tim Holtz ephemera pieces, and I'm just trying to pull in some of the colors from the little spotty background, and I will just collage these around. I did have to pull in a pair of tweezers to help me get some of these back in behind there because they're so tiny. But it helped because I had all of that free open space back behind there because there was just that one little pop dot in the middle of that heart. And so I just started layering everything, and then I'm going to add my constant, which is my word, which is the word free, this time from John 8:32. And I'm going to be putting that right in the center of the heart. And it fit really well right in there. So I was really excited about that. And then I thought it was finished, and I really wanted another piece of ephemera just for them to kind of all wrap around that left side of the heart. I was really trying to bring the color kind of down into that bottom right hand corner. So I just added one more little piece and kind of just tucked it way in there, and that will be it for that card. And then moving on to week 29, the prompt for this week is photo. And so since I had black last week, I'm going to actually use black this week in my photo. So I pulled a black and white photo to use, and I love this lady. This is just a vintage photo that I have in my from my stash. And then I had this piece of Tim Holtz paper sitting around on my desk, and I really wanted to use it. And I thought I was going to save the background of the card on this one because I really like that color palette, but I decided not to. I'm just going to make it a little bit more vintage. So I'm pulling in some other pieces of paper. These are actually just things that are floating around in my little scrap thing on my desk. And so a couple sheets of Tim Holtz, and then this is a printable, actually, the other section that I'm using here, and I'm just layering them. This photo is pretty big. It's going to take up most of this card, and so I don't have to worry about, covering the whole section like in the middle. And so I'm just going kind of around the edges, and then I will trim everything down because she's going to sit right there and cover all of that up. I wanted to save as much of that photo as I could just because it's such a beautiful vintage photo. But I also used my decal edge trimmer. I don't think I mentioned that, and just to get a nice edge on this this photo. I just think it adds to it. It was bigger, so I had to trim out the white parts of it, but I really like how it ended up turning out. And then I wanted to save that script over there on the left side, so I kind of put her off center, which I actually like better anyway. And then my word for this week, my carryover, or my constant item, excuse me, is the word. And so the word humility from this week from 1 Peter 5:5. And then I felt like that top right hand corner just needed a little something, so I added a butterfly, and that's it. So if you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and until next time, bye.